Hello and welcome. Today I'd like to discuss a couple of options available to the specifier community as well as to the installers if they're involved in a decision-making process. Not specifically, the title here is going to be the bedding medium for an impervious surface. Most often it's going to be concrete as your impervious surface, but with that, because of undulations in concrete finishing and things like that, 𝐦𝐨𝐫𝐈 does have a spec of 1 inch of bedding material here, torpedo sand, your ASTM C33, all right, as a good option, best practice if you will. Certainly that is a good option that many specifiers have used in the past and had good success with. However, what I'd like to discuss in relationship to that is here with the bedding chip that we use, the ASTM number 8, still giving us the same performance, meaning a medium to accept that paver installation and run that compactor down, a leveling medium, all right, that we can use. So the ASTM chip number 8 is also a viable option on your installation. Now, let's look at during the installation some of the performance issues that we see that deviate. So, would you traffic material or across these two mediums? Well, here with torpedo sand, we historically know that we don't want to create any downward force. What we're doing is taking that level medium and moving that laterally. Here with the chip, unless I rotate my foot, I don't have that same effect. So I like the stability basically here because it's angular, because it's the right gradation to be able to achieve that. Some of the other things that we're going to see long-term performance now is how that affects lockup and things like that. So here, what I'd like to do in showing you that is run our plate compactor over this installation here, all right, between the sand and as well as the chip. What I want to do is then peel that material back and show you what has happened with the integrity of those two components, kind of side-by-side comparison. Let's fire this up. Roller compactors are great because they'll allow you that opportunity. I could actually idle that down and run directly over concrete, but anyways, here the purpose of that is to kind of show you what's happening here as far as the performance of these two components. So if I peel back our paver edge here, I can see that I have drive down, so I have brought this material into consolidation. I'm about a 1/4 inch driven down, all right? But over here, if I look at our bedding sand, now you purists are looking at lippage and basically lockup. So what we're starting to see is some shadows here of that sand. All right, so that sand is being driven up. Just like our footprints move that sand laterally, same thing is happening here during that installation process. So these are two things, and if honestly we throw water at this and look at long-term performance of these two components side by side, kind of want to demonstrate some of the characteristics that you're going to see in long-term performance with these mediums. So here, one of the things that I like about the ASTM number 8 is that I can use that as a free-flowing drainage system for any water that does enter into that paving system. So here I've got a control joint. Every concrete installation on sub-base is going to have a series of control joints, typically about 10 feet on center, but I'll use that as a gutter system. So I love to punch my weep holes in the control joint at every 2 feet, all right? That basically is going to capture water at intervals of every 10 feet. Again, almost its own gutter system. With sand, we don't really have that characteristic to be able to free flow water through that. Another component here, remember I talked about lockup, and here if I've got moisture between these two mediums of ASTM number 8 chip as well as the bedding sand here, if I'm to lay pavers on top of this, and we demonstrate this with permeable quite a bit, that if I do that, now again I'm driving sand up to that surface here, but how much sand is driven up? We really can't find the answer to that when we're doing our installation. So I'd rather over here take it to that chip, drive that down through compaction. Now what I'm counting on is my bedding, or excuse me, my joint sand to basically come down and lock down into that bedding medium. So that's not going to happen once I'm driving sand up here. However, over here on chips, now I'm taking sand, either polymeric or more specifically a better choice option might be the synthetic sands, and locking that material right down into that chip layer. So that's a characteristic that we like to see, that takes every joint on your paver installation and locks that down into bedding. So I think for us, long-term performance, we believe a little bit more in the use of chip in an overlay process versus the sand. So both of these are great mediums when it comes to concrete overlays, but this is more related specifically to light duty pedestrian maintenance equipment and things like that. When it comes to a heavier duty vehicular application, we'll often look at bituminous installations, and bituminous has been around a long time, but I recognize some of the challenges that you have in bituminous installations. So for example, asphalt plants are only open specifically toward closing at Thanksgiving, opens up in April, so availability of product to be able to do an installation with bituminous can be a challenge, just in receiving the components necessary to do that. The other thing is transportation and logistics. What plants can make the sand mix necessary to do an installation of bituminous can be a challenge. It's coming out at 300 degrees. So distance of travel and things like that, there's a certain workability time frame when it comes to bituminous applications. The other thing, the mastic, the neoprene, is now considered obviously a hazmat material. So using that material and disposing of that material obviously again represents specific challenges. So when it comes to that, some opportunities that you might want to identify and take a look at is here one of the that we've got in this last quadrant in our area. It's called dry bond. Came out 2 years ago. We've had good success with it. Here's a streetscape picture that we want to show you that allows the designer now to actually install larger slab formats. So here it's a 2x2 slab format that's being installed on that and cut creatively in. So it allows, again, that opportunity for a little bit more diversity in the product line instead of just standard pavers. So I do like that as an extra opportunity. For me, one of the things that I really key on is the ease of installation. So this is the screed bar roller that they provide. It's got a series of discs available to create depths according to what you require as far as your overall depth of bedding. It's usually only 1/4 of an inch or 3/8 of an inch, and it's directly over your concrete. So here I'm going to use that screed bar, and you can kind of see this versus anybody that's done bituminous recognizes how easy this is going to go. We don't need to apply the compaction like you would on bituminous or anything like that. So this is, to me, so much easier. And if you look at the other consideration with bituminous versus dry bond, usually a spec is going to consider a 5-year minimum experience level when it comes to bituminous installation. Well, that's not necessarily the case here with dry bond. Dry bond's easy to install, thereby inviting many more contractors to the bid table to allow that owner to get a more effective price for your design and your installation. The format is going to be the same here. The final product here delivered in dry form. Again, no limitations or restrictions on availability, but the overall end effect is going to be that I'm cementing my slab here with that dry bond, bonding these together to the lower substrate below it. Typically 4 to 6 inches of concrete, right? Here it's over permeable. Permeable concrete is my sub base. But again, I can take that and I can use, again, a little bit more diversity in the product line that I choose. So slabs and things like that definitely now are an opportunity in the specifier community to put in different streetscape commercial applications. So any questions at all on dry bond, please feel free to reach out to your local commercial rep. I'd be happy to answer questions. And again, thank you for your time today. Bruce Walter signing off.